Raise your hand if you've ever sat in a bathroom stall before. Now, raise your hand if you've ever felt uncomfortable while sitting in a bathroom stall. I too feel uncomfortable in bathroom stalls. I avoid touching the toilet seat directly, make sure to always tear off the last square of toilet paper before use, and bring my own hand sanitizer to use before and after washing my hands. Because you can never be safe enough, right? This past year and a half has afforded me the luxury of free time. Free time to relax, to watch TV, to spend time with my cats, and to panic over the constant news of surging death rates and new variants, and father makes one last wish that his kids get vaccinated. While I am able to avoid direct human contact outside my bubble, my eyes are constantly fixed on the Google COVID-19 statistics. Eventually, my brain decides that masking up and washing my hands isn't enough, and so I begin to explore new ways to ensure my family's safety. These new ways include rubbing hand sanitizer on my arm whenever anyone brushes up against it, making certain noises, climbing up and down the staircases in particular patterns, and avoiding leaving my house at all costs. As you can imagine, spending extra time climbing up and down a staircase just to have to run all the way back down and do it all over again if I forgot to skip the 11th step. It's painful. It's also illogical. How is this staircase supposed to protect my family from contracting an airborne virus? The short answer is, it's not. It is, however, a tool for making me feel better. The temporary relief I get from screaming at my mom not to cook for me because she'll definitely contaminate the food, from repeatedly asking my parents if they had washed their hands, and from spending the hours I set aside for schoolwork climbing up and down staircases and finally making it to the top about 45 minutes after starting. It feels so good. I'm continuing through the school year and my relationship with my parents is deteriorating. Around winter break, I realized that this so good feeling quickly fades. Since it's not bringing me pleasure anymore and it was illogical in the first place, I'll just stop. Easy as that, right? So I try. I walk up the staircase like I would have before the pandemic. I stare at the posters on the walls and hold onto the railing so as not to fall. I make it to the top of the staircase in less than a minute. And I immediately run back down to do it all over again, the right way. I try opening the doorknob to the pantry with my bare hand. The metal is cold and probably covered in trillions of germs ready to rob me of my life. Before I even turn the knob partway, I retract my hand. I take a walk with my mom around the neighborhood. The air is crisp and smells like burning leaves. I see someone walking on the sidewalk and howl at my mom to stay as far away from them as possible. I develop an intricate system for where we are allowed to walk in different circumstances. A time bomb is developing within me, ticking faster and faster each day. At night, I crawl into bed and dread waking up in the morning the next day because I don't know how many meltdowns I'll have. I get mad at myself for not being able to quit my rituals. I get mad and I feel like I'm destroying my family, and I wonder why it has to be me that goes through this. Some of you in this room might recognize what I'm going through, and this is no surprise. After I was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD, I realized the illness's pervasiveness in society, that the pandemic has only made it worse. In the pandemic, OCD patients are trapped. The news is telling you to wash your hands and avoid human contact, and these are the things you've been trying so hard not to worry about, that you begin to question yourself. Should I be hand sanitizing right now? If so, just once? Twice? Is this something everyone should be doing, or is this just in my head? This cognitive dissonance is so frustrating. My parents suggest I go to therapy, but I can't bear to lose the one thing keeping me sane in its own twisted way: my rituals. And while some of them are acceptable in this pandemic setting, even I have to admit there are larger worries I'm trying to keep at bay. Without my rituals, what's to protect my parents from dying? What's to keep me from picturing their tombstones, epitaphs reading, "Linden could have done something"? The time bomb ticks faster and faster. Tick, I can't focus on school. Tick, tick, my legs are weary from climbing up and down staircases. Tick, tick, I spend more time arguing with my parents than I do laughing. And everything around me feels so dirty. I stare out my window through Lysoled air and realize that my closest human contact is hugging my mom through a plastic trash bag. Boom. I walk down the stairs, making sure to skip the 11th step, and tell my parents I'm ready to get help. The months that follow are spent waiting for a therapist to become available. I am recommended for exposure and response prevention therapy, a type of cognitive behavioral therapy, also known as ERP, with a 75 to 85% success rate in patients with OCD. I eventually get a therapist who I love for being so accepting of me and easily articulating the feelings I didn't understand for so long. I begin working to stop my rituals. At the heart of this is discovering why I am so afraid of contamination and of my family being hurt. Although less extreme than they are now, I'm able to trace back my behaviors to my early childhood. Because in-person ERP is difficult to do during a global pandemic, I conduct my sessions virtually. I tell my therapist what I will do in between sessions to expose myself to my fears, and when I do, I try not to give in to my rituals. Moving away from home and into, in my case, a residential school is always going to be intimidating, but even more so when you're afraid of coming into close contact with other people and of touching doorknobs. But with the tools from ERP and the promise I made to myself to not live a life ruled by fear, I am able to enjoy learning again and spending time with others again. And I am able to finally give my mom the hugs we both desperately need. Some days are more difficult than others, but I have worked too hard to let that set me back. That's the thing people don't understand about OCD. To live with it, you have to work unbelievably hard. OCD is emotionally exhausting, interpersonally detrimental, and time-consuming, not a love for organizing. OCD is not a quirk. It is not something to be applauded for having. No, everyone is not a little OCD. Know your love of color coding, an organized closet, and office supplies. It's not a mental illness. On the other hand, many people are left to struggle in silence because they do have OCD, but not the resources to seek help. Accessing therapies is difficult because those who pursue mental health care are often privileged, with insurance to cover not just copays, but multiple sessions of treatment within support systems that recognize issues and listen to requests for support in positive ways. And because popular culture has turned the most visible aspects of obsessive compulsive disorder into the punchline of a joke, many people aren't able to recognize that their obsessions and compulsions are part of larger needs for support, so they thus decide to ignore their pain and cope on their own. If we want stronger communities, if we want people who can navigate their feelings and fears, we have to make exposure and response prevention therapy more accessible. 72% of Americans experienced an increase in OCD symptoms during the pandemic, and this isn't just an issue for those with the condition. Those individuals have family and friends who are affected as well. We need to understand that OCD isn't just preferring for something to be arranged in a particular way, that the actual illness is chronic and biological and potentially devastating. We need to actualize a world in which no one struggles in silence and everyone is able to get the help they need without shame. My story with OCD is one of many. It's also one of the happier ones. I ask you to educate yourself on the stigma surrounding obsessive-compulsive disorder, to challenge the systems that reinforce it, and to, in whichever ways you can, help make mental health resources more accessible. Thank you.